I live in the middle of an ancient burial ground. My family has been caretakers for this land for over 600 years. So that makes you pervy too. A lot of strange, abnormal, paranormal things. Like most people don't know that rats in a graveyard are actually as big as bulldogs. But they still like cheese as well as flesh. They become like little guard dogs, little pets. They've always been very pervy to the caretakers, and they've always loved for us to be here. Because not only do we care for the grounds, we care for them. I myself have grown generations of graveyard rats. I adore them. But because I'm young, I still have to go to school. So, unfortunately, me having to go to school means I am prone to the everyday bullying like everyone else. They call me Rat Queen. I mean, some of the baby rats have snuck into my backpack like once or twice or 20 times, but no more than anybody else, I would think. But I digress. Anyways, back to my home in the graveyard. While living there, I have been privy to a bunch of seances amongst the dead, as well as a few phantasms and hauntings. The seances are a bit strange because they really wouldn't alter forth anything at all, because the people who are casting these spells are run-of-the-mill generic housewives who think just because they gather a whole bunch of different little items, they can be magical. Now, some of the seances have been very forthcoming and fruitful because, unlike most of them, the individuals actually have a magical background. Most of the seances for me that have been very fruitful have been seances with cultural people of color, black people. So they actually bring things into fruition. They come from deep spiritual backgrounds, I've noticed. Way deeper than the run-of-the-mill generic housewife who tries to butt in on their cultural aspects of their lives. So, what happens for ethnic rituals definitely doesn't happen for the housewives and house husbands and the CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. So, one of the most fruitful things that I've seen come from a seance is the connection back to their roots and their family. Their families actually manifest and show themselves. And for those of you who don't believe that your ancestors play a big part in what you become, you're sadly mistaken. I've seen individuals go from being on most high to groveling in the dirt to finally resting at my feet eternally. So the outcomes are rather different. I've seen housewives come and beg for beauty and wealth and all of these things, and it never turns out the way they want. They get pattern baldness and become quite vile creatures. You know, the outlook of an actual witch comes from what housewives turn into. I've noticed that ethnic witches are beautiful. I mean, divine goddesses out of this world. And witches with very strict practices. Now, witches around the world of any color are beautiful. And living in this graveyard has showed me, if anything, spiritual practices, witchcraft, and things of that nature are not a game. They seriously need to be practiced on a daily basis. You need to actually believe in what you're trying to resurrect and manifest and bring forth. So if you don't believe, your magic is going to go wrong and you're going to end up bald and unhappy, an old crone with a hunchback and a shriveled up fingers. That's where the modern day "this is what a witch looks like" come from. It doesn't come from what actual witches look like. The old crones that most people avoid only have the power to really make you avoid them and to plague you with the unhappiness that they have. Whereas all of the other witches, the beautiful ones, the ones that are so ethnically talented, their power comes from their ancestors and their wills. It comes from and manifests through the struggles that they have lived with throughout their centuries. Some witches are reborn, reincarnates of past lives and have lived generation through generation, righting the wrongs that have been done to their families. Some witches are just eternal. They found the secret of eternal life. And me being here in this graveyard has showed me a lot of these secrets. I have a lot of witch friends. I have a lot of zombie friends. Believe it or not, zombies are real. They are actual dead people. But they're pretty down to earth and they just want to find a way to not smell as bad. They spirit found a way to keep the body living on, well, not living on, but it hasn't found a way to fragrance and keep the body vital and not falling apart. You know what happens to a zombie after it has pretty much outlived its body's viability? It pretty much breaks down. And the only thing that is normally left intact is the torso, maybe one arm, and head. And then they just lay around. They're pretty much sad once that happens, because they can no longer go out. But I've created a little mausoleum where I put their top halves, and I have a TV in there, and they get to watch TV and stuff until finally they just disintegrate so much that they no longer move, walk, talk, or moan, make any signs. They actually move on. They actually return to the afterlife. So that's what I do with the zombies. And back to the witches. 9 times out of 10, the zombies are a byproduct of the witches. And they really try their hardest to manifest and bring forth family members. But the family members need a body. So, hence, there comes a zombie. The family members are always around them and usually are there at the end of time when they finally just fully decompose and no longer are. And at that point, I rebury them, put them back in their places. So me being here has shown me that there are a lot of different things that go on in the graveyard. And more than anything, it has given me enlightenment on spirituality and also powers. Yes, my family has powers. We've had them for 600 generations since we came and settled here in the graveyard. Apparently, we were cast out because we were keepers of stories and of the dead. And at some point, civilization turned from seeing dead as sacred to seeing dead as horror movies and horrific and plague carriers and things of that nature, so they kind of forced my family out. Truthfully, my family is only one of hundreds of what we call graveyard families, keepers of the dead. And all of them, each member of their family has their own unique gift given for caring for the dead. I have a friend who lives in the US, and she is from a graveyard family. And she is an empath, psychic, and has minor magic. I don't consider being an empath or psychic magic. I consider it I consider it more of an evolution. I mean, wouldn't it be great to be able to, feel what other people feel? So some of us have got that and some of us don't. So she has those gifts. And she was gifted magical powers by some of the witches that hold seances in her land. We are a bit different. We are the same age, but of course, she is ethnic, and I consider myself just not ethnic. I kind of wish I was, but I'm not. It's not feasible that I'm this translucent. For the longest, I would assume I was a ghost, but apparently not. I'm just translucent and white. But don't get me wrong, I am perfectly fine with who I am. I just know that magic doesn't work the same for me. Like, I can do magic, but I don't want to turn into a crone. Some of the ethnic witches that come and do seances here and where I live have given me a pass because they say at some point in my past, I have not always been translucent, and I do feel a kinship with that. And they've read my fortune and told me my future. I'm gonna live to be very, 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 very old, apparently. But again, that's just one of the benefits of living in a graveyard. And if you would like to hear more stories, I would tell you them on a later date. But for now, that was just me introducing and telling you guys about my life in a graveyard. And I am Liliana. Thank you.